Hello, you're very welcome to today's video. This is another of the I Am, I Lack series, and in today's video we're going to explore I lack freedom and also look at ways that you can reclaim your freedom. But in order to understand what is freedom, we have to kind of know what it is that binds us or places us in bondage. So before I go into that, just a little bit about who I am in case you're new to this channel. My name's Anand. I'm an emotional wellness and embodiment coach, and I support those who are weighed down with inner struggles, and I help them uncover their inner richness. And I do it through a variety of ways, through coaching, through meditation, if that's something you'd like to use as well, and through somatic practices. So for me actually, what the greatest inner richness is freedom. And before I talk a little bit about freedom, what it means, and to understand if you have a sense of feeling free, you have to understand what is it that's holding you back? What is it that's keeping you encaged in a prison? Or a gilded cage, because many of us are in gilded cages that we just don't see. We believe we're free, but we're not actually free. So if this is something that you're wanting to explore more, continue to listen in. So I'm going to share a little quote from OSHO. What he talks about is that there are 3 dimensions to freedom. The first is the one that we're probably most familiar with, and that's physical freedom. Freedom to move about, to go where we want, freedom to own our bodies, freedom to move about, or not be in a prison, not be in a cage. Some of us lose our rights to freedom when we break the law. And some of us lose our rights to freedom when we're controlled, which happens to many people. And interestingly enough, Osho talks about how, freedom of the body will mean that there is no distinction between black and white, that there is no distinction between man and woman, that there is no distinction of any kind as far as bodies are concerned. No body is pure. No body is impure. All bodies are the same. This is the very basis of freedom. And he talks earlier about how the woman's body is not as free as the man's body. And that certainly has been my experience. I am that generation that used to know how things were, kind of my parents and grandparents, and how things were for them. And having witnessed the women's liberation and the freedoms that I'm enjoying because of those women, that I have more freedom. I have more. Now, I know things are slipping back right now, but I hope that collectively as women that we continue to hold on to and expand our physical freedom and ownership of our bodies. So you may be in a physical bondage. You may be controlled, you may be coerced, you may be restricted in what you can do. Because depending on where you are in the world listening to this, your freedoms may be restricted, your physical freedom. The next piece of freedom that Osho talks about, or bondage that we can be in, is what he calls, there's a second dimension, physiological freedom. Now this, he also, and I also concur, is that very few people have psychological freedom. I've often talked in videos before how we're conditioned by society to behave, to think, to act in a certain way. So a quick litmus test for you to consider is how psychologically free are you? Can you do something without worrying about what other people think? Now, I'm not talking about the freedom to go and hurt someone or to harm someone or touch someone or break someone else's boundary. I'm talking about if you were in a children's play park and you saw a roundabout and you thought, oh, I love roundabouts and I want to go on one, I'm going to go on it. Would you just jump on and go on the roundabout? Or would you go, oh God, does anyone see me? Will they think I'm stupid? That's just a tiny litmus test to see how free are you. Now, maybe going on a kid's roundabout isn't your thing. That's fine. But where in your life do you hold yourself back for fear of what other people will say or think or do? Are you in a job that you're pleasing somebody else? Are you doing things for another person because, well, I have to and I need to do it and, what will they think of me? These are the things you're meant to do. You're meant to do the things for the family. You're meant to do things for the community. If you're saying, I have to do these things, that's not freedom. You're not choosing with an open heart to do the thing. You're doing it because you feel you have to do it, because society conditioned you to do it, or religion told you to do it, or your parents told you to do it, or that old voice in your head tells you you must do it. But if you find that you have to force yourself into something, you are not psychologically free. Very few of us are. And later on in the video, I'm going to talk about an incredible process I experienced that helped me really taste freedom for the first time in my life. I'm getting emotional because I had always felt trapped, but I didn't know what was trapping me. Psychologically, I'm talking about. I definitely had the restrictions as a woman, a young woman, and that was much more easier to see. But the psychological bondage I was in, that I didn't see for a very, very long time, but I see it now. And that's why it's interesting that I find that I'm doing this video. I had planned out this content months ago, and I was away for 2 weeks and I did this workshop, and there I tasted inner freedom. And the next video on the list was I lack freedom. I love the synchronicity of that. The final piece of freedom that Osho talks about, and this is where meditation comes in. He says the third dimension is the ultimate freedom, which is knowing that you are not the body, knowing that you are not the mind, knowing that you are only pure consciousness. That knowledge comes through meditation. I'm not going to focus on that aspect of freedom. I'm really going to predominantly focus on psychological freedom. The reason being is that type of freedom that Osho is talking about is really something beyond words and something beyond the mind. So we use the mind to talk. I'm not going to talk about the unsayable. So, if you meditate and you go into meditation, and the more deeper you go into meditation, something will happen. So I will leave that one there. But today we're going to look at psychological freedom. So the first element is what's holding you back, what's imprisoning you. What are the things that you're afraid to do? And when you start to identify what those are, then the question is, well, how do you break free? How do you move through those self-imposed voices or the voices of others? How do you say yes for you and no to someone else? You have to weigh up which is the most important. Pleasing the other, doing what others want, or following your own music. That's your choice. For me, I choose freedom. And When I was in the OSHO Center in Pune, I did a process called OSHO Born Again. It's the last meditative therapy that Osho created before he left the body, meaning when he died. And it's something. It's magical. In it, for over 7 days, for 2 hours a day, the first hour, you be like a child. You can play, cry, weep, sleep, whatever. You be like a child. And that one condition is that you do not touch or harm another. And it's amazing when you move into being like a child, so many elements arise. For me, there was new elements of creativity because there wasn't a whole lot to play with. There was this moment-to-moment experience with no thinking. I didn't think because we don't verbalize, we don't talk. We can make sounds, but we don't use words or use old nursery rhymes that we know. We avoid things that bring us into the mind. So it's this moment-to-moment childlike, ooh, there's a stone, or there's a tissue that you can make into a flower, or I'm tired, I don't want to smile, I don't want to do anything. Or just bouncing around the room, whatever. It's a moment-to-moment thing, and I loved it. I got to experience the inner freedom that I didn't get as a child, because I was so restricted as a child, really. And there were many things, do's and don'ts and rules, and couldn't make sounds and couldn't be noisy and couldn't be destructive, because children love to be destructive. They love to be creative, and they love to break things up and tear things. And I got to do all of that in this process. I want to read a quote from Osho about the child and about this psychological freedom. What he says, psychological freedom will be possible when children are allowed to grow, helped to grow toward more intellect, more intelligence, more consciousness, more alertness. No belief is given to them. They are not taught any kind of faith, but they are given as much incentive as possible to search for truth. And they have to be reminded from the very beginning, your truth, your finding is going to liberate you. Nothing else can do that for you. He says, truth cannot be borrowed, it cannot be studied in books. Nobody can inform you about it. You have to sharpen yourself, your intelligence, so that you can look into existence and find it. If a child is left open, receptive, alert, and given the incentive for search, he will have psychological freedom. And with psychological freedom comes tremendous responsibility. You don't have to teach it to him. It comes like a shadow of psychological freedom. And he will be grateful to you. Otherwise, every child is angry at his parents because they spoiled him, they destroyed his freedom, they conditioned his mind. Even before he asked any questions, they filled his mind with answers which are all bogus because they are not based on his own experience. The world lives in psychological slavery. And I hope that this resonates with you, that this is something that you go, yeah, I get this, because it certainly resonates with me. And so one way I would recommend, if you want to find your freedom, do OSHO Born Again. It's mainly done in the OSHO Center in India. There may be other OSHO centers around the world that offer it. I think OSHO Afros in Greece offers it. But have a look. I'll put links in where you can find it. That's one way of discovering your inner freedom. If that's maybe something that you're not ready for, then looking at where you restrict yourself and slowly taking baby steps towards reclaiming your freedom. Maybe looking at one area in your life. And this is where the coaching with me can be really invaluable. Maybe you feel restricted in your body, so we can use somatic practices to help you reclaim the freedom in your body. Maybe you feel restricted in the work that you're doing work you don't enjoy. Again, coaching with me can help you create an action plan to move out of that or being in that role while you work on reframing that role, reframing how you look at it. You don't have to leave something, you can reframe it. And that's where coaching's really powerful. And reframing can help you reclaim your freedom. So these are just a few ways of how you can reclaim your freedom. First, it's knowing what it is you don't have, where you're held in bondage. And then understanding how you can move towards becoming free. And this could be simple things like learning to say no. This could be reframing or rebalancing your priorities. Well, I spend 70% of my time on doing things for person A. I'm now going to take back 20% of that time and put that in for me. There are many practical ways you can reclaim your freedom. You can start questioning and go, this thing that I'm told, this thing that I read, is that true? Is that my own experience? You know? Actually, the most ultimate way of reclaiming your psychological freedom is starting to know, who am I? What do I enjoy? What am I about? This thought that I have, did this come from me or did it come from someone else? And if it's from someone else, is what they say true for me? If you can take one thing away from this video, that's it. Question everything. Become a skeptic. And when I say question everything and become a skeptic, that's not to be everything that everyone says is nonsense. You then have to test it internally. Is this true for me? Is this my own lived experience? I've talked in other videos of experiencing what hot feels like. If someone tells me, don't touch that, that's hot, and I never touch it, I will never know what hot feels like. But if I touch it myself and ooh, hot, I'll always know. You don't have to tell me what hot is. I know it. And that's what I'm saying. Be a skeptic. Test it for yourself. And then see inside, is that true for me? And having that discernment, my God, will take you so far in your inner richness. I don't think I will go way over time if I start talking about that. So I'm going to leave it at that. And I hope you get something valuable from this video. And if you feel really stuck, please do book a session with me. I'd love to work with you on this. Have a great day, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.